end to the long-held conspiracy theories about a supposed client list of Jeffrey Epstein. The investigation said it found no evidence to support the theories about Epstein's death and his alleged client list of American elite. Several Trump supporters have criticized the Attorney General and the FBI Director for their findings, which came months after the Attorney General had pledged to reveal major revelations about Epstein, including a lot of names. US media reports, in fact, have said that the FBI Deputy Director had clashed with the Attorney General over the issue and was considering stepping down. Before working at the FBI, both the FBI Deputy Director and his boss have made statements about a so-called client list and often suggested that the government was hiding information about Epstein from the American public. In a post on X, Patel said that conspiracy theories around Epstein were not true. He also denied rumors of resignation, saying that it is an honor to serve the president. And earlier, President Trump pushed back against growing criticism from his own political base. In a lengthy post on his Truth Social account, he defended the Attorney General. He slammed the craze around Epstein, calling him a guy who never dies. And he called for the Attorney General and for the FBI Director to instead focus on what he terms the rigged and stolen election of 2020, which he lost to Joe Biden. And with us on the broadcast this minute is our correspondent, Susan Teherani, who's been tracking that very closely. Hi, Susan. You know, this appeal in a way by the American president urging his supporters to stay calm over the issue. To what extent do you see that actually working? Also, this row over the case refuses to die down and does have a lot of political implications at this time.
It really does. You know, on the one hand, there was President Trump just late last week really attacking that reporter that asked about Jeffrey Epstein, saying, I can't believe you're still talking about that. Some believe that that was a message to his MAGA base to just, you know, let it go. There is no there. But nonetheless, we saw all throughout the weekend, starting with Friday afternoon, where reports came that there is a wedge between Dan Bongino, Deputy FBI Director, Kash Patel, and Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice. Basically, Bongino saying that either I stay or Bondi stays. Then you played President Trump's soundbite. Now, the Democrats are also involved because they see an opportunity here. Some Democrats are now introducing a bill calling for the release of the full Epstein files. Now, we do know that some video footage was released. There's a minute of footage that's missing in there, and that has caused a lot of controversy and a lot of theories to come to the surface. And then you may hear the MAGA base and influential MAGA, even politicians on Capitol Hill calling for some kind of an independent investigation on how the DOJ and the FBI handled the Epstein case. Nonetheless, you're absolutely right, Molly. This isn't going anywhere. And now some are concerned that it's going to be a political liability for President Trump. Just very quickly, let me add that while President Trump sent that message that we shouldn't be talking about this anymore, he may sort of gauge the environment, and we may see some kind of course correction coming from the Trump administration soon as well. He does listen to his base. So once he sees that, you know, the base is not satisfied, it'll be interesting to see how he moves forward.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment, Susan. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And we're switching gears. Elon Musk, Zoran Mandani, and Rosie O'Donnell, all three names share one thing in common. US President Donald Trump does not like them and threatened them with deportation. And the latest victim of Trump's attack is comedian and actress Rosie O'Donnell. In a social media post on Truth Social, the US president said, I'm quoting, Rosie O'Donnell is not in the best interests of our great country. I am giving serious consideration to taking away her citizenship. Rosie ODonnell is a U.S. citizen by birth. Her citizenship is protected by the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution that guarantees citizenship to anyone born in the U.S. But recently, the Trump administration is trying to chip away birthright citizenship. And this is not the first time. The U.S. president has threatened his critics with deportation. Trump earlier called the Democratic Party candidate for New York mayor race, Zoran Mandani, a communist while threatening to arrest him. Trump said, "We don't need communists in the country."
Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation. We send him money. We send him all the things that he needs to run a government. We're going to be watching that very carefully, and a lot of people are saying he's here illegally. He's, we're going to look at everything.
Not just Mandani, Trump has also threatened his friend turned foe Elon Musk. After Musk criticized his big, beautiful budget bill, Trump said without subsidies, Elon Musk will have to close his shop and head back to South Africa. Mandani and Musk have acquired U.S. citizenship through naturalization. And according to the law, citizenship acquired through naturalization can be revoked under these circumstances. 1, if the concerned individual commits crimes related to terrorism, war crimes, human rights violations, sex crimes. And 2, if misrepresentation of facts is found at the time of taking citizenship. Earlier this month itself, Trump signed an executive order, remember, that sought to deny citizenship to babies born to parents living in the United States illegally. And later, a federal judge in New Hampshire issued a ruling blocking the executive order. Trump may or may not go ahead and deport Musk, Mandani or Rosie ODonnell. But the question still is the U.S. president using citizenship and deportation as a tool to try and silence his critics? Moving on for now, in a controversial shift that could fast-track deportations from the U.S., a newly revealed Trump-era memo says U.S. immigration officials may deport migrants to third countries with as little as 6 hours' notice. And this is a significant departure from the standard 24-hour policy. As per reports, the memo, which was dated the 9th of July, allows this rapid removal only under what it calls exigent circumstances. Crucially, these deportations can happen without additional legal screenings, and as long as the receiving country assures it will not persecute or torture the individual. This policy move follows a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling that cleared the way for such deportations, lifting prior restrictions. In fact, 8 migrants that were originally from Cuba, Laos, Mexico, Myanmar, Sudan, Vietnam have already been deported to South Sudan under this authority. The administration is also ramping up diplomatic efforts, asking 5 African nations to accept deportees from other regions. And these nations include Liberia, Senegal, and Gabon. Critics say the policy raises major human rights and legal concerns. In fact, they warn the policy fails to meet due process requirements and strips migrants of basic protections under U.S. law. The memo was submitted as evidence in a lawsuit involving Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland resident who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador, and this case is now at the center of the legal challenge. With the immigration policy a growing flashpoint, the debate over fairness, security, and legality is far from over.
They actually did all the work.
Moving on to Ukraine now, where President Volodymyr Zelensky has kicked off a major government reshuffle. The Deputy Prime Minister, Yulia Sviridenko, has now been named as the next Prime Minister of the country. In fact, Zelensky said he had met with Sviridenko earlier in the day to discuss cooperation with the US and Europe. The parliament will ratify the decision this week. As Zelensky's Servant of the People party controls at least 231 out of 450 seats. Sridenko is regarded as an economic and trade expert. Born in 1985 in the Chernihiv region north of Kiev, she initially worked her way through local politics and the private sector before becoming part of Zelensky's government. In 2019, she served initially as Deputy Minister of the Economy and later rose to become Deputy Head of the Presidential Administration. Since 2021, she is serving as Minister of Economy and Deputy Head of Government. She also played a key role in striking rare earth minerals deal with the United States. Sridenko has been responsible for attracting international aid and loans since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. Zelensky had a lengthy meeting with the U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, shortly before the new Prime Minister's naming. The incumbent faces the challenge of bringing in funds to fight Russia on the front lines.
Тимчасово окупована цих користів.
Britain's King Charles is set to host US President Donald Trump for a state visit at Windsor Castle from the 17th of September to the 19th. And this will be Trump's second state visit to Britain. Plans of Trump's visit to England coming months after the British Prime Minister handed the American president a royal invite from the monarchy during his official tour to the United States. During his visit, Trump will be joined by the First Lady, Melania Trump, and Trump's visit to the UK also marking a significant moment in the US-UK transatlantic relations as he becomes the first US president to be invited for a second state visit. His previous state visit took place in 2019 during his first term, when he was welcomed by Queen Elizabeth II, the late Queen of England. However, Trump's forthcoming visit has become a talking point between Londoners. While some express pragmatism, others are wary of his state visit. Listen to these reactions.
We have to welcome him in some way or form, regardless how we feel about his politics. So, yeah, I think he's like a big baby. You got to give him his toys to play with, and if he gets the bragging rights. He's the first U.S. president to be, asked back twice in his second presidency. That's good bragging rights. I hope that appeals to his vanity.
Shame on this country that we're accepting him for a second time. And as for Scotland hosting his golf courses, big shame on Scotland. I feel this way because he's a climate denier. He's telling lies about everything. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people following him.
Further details of the program and the pomp and ceremony associated with the visit are expected in the coming months. Trump will be hosted by the British monarchy at their residence at Windsor as Buckingham Palace in London is under renovation. A formal invitation was issued by King Charles and it was extended on the advice of the UK government. The visit aligns with Keir Starmer's plan to foster a pragmatic relationship with Trump and protect the UK from potentially harmful US policies.
I must make sure his signature is on there. So otherwise it's...
And let's now get to you the latest from Turkey, where the president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is coming down hard against his political rivals, including opposition-aligned journalists. Threats and pressure on opposition journalists have increased since the arrest of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu in March. And widening the crackdown now, Turkish media watchdog has slapped a 10-day broadcast ban on Turkey's most popular pro-opposition news channel. The channel was forced off air for streaming an opposition rally live after the arrest of the Istanbul mayor. It is the broadcast arm of the daily newspaper there, which has been a vocal critic of President Erdogan. Other pro-opposition channels as well have been slapped with financial and administrative penalties for content deemed critical of the Erdogan government.
This year we received 16 penalties in total. Every month for the last 8 months we received 2 penalties per month. we are facing a penalty every 15 days. These are monetary, administrative, or financial penalties. Now, there are also broadcast suspensions. We received this penalty because we aired the speech of the leader of the party, CHP, that received the most votes in Turkey during the last election, the speech they gave at the podium.
Last month, RT UK had imposed a similar 10-day broadcast ban on another network for allegedly inciting hatred over remarks by a guest about sectarianism in Turkey. But the channel got a reprieve after it received a week-long stay on the ban following an appeal. However, despite the growing intimidation and threats, news outlets remain defiant.
It's a very tough penalty, but after these 10 days, I always say the same thing from the start. We will continue to do what we do best, journalism, not from where we left off, but with more strength, with more conviction.
The wider crackdown on the opposition started after Imamoglu, the opposition CHP's presidential candidate, was arrested in March and jailed on corruption charges. His arrest sparked Turkey's largest protests in more than a decade, leading to the detention of hundreds of CHP supporters and officials. And since Imamoglu's detention, the Turkish government has suspended 11 opposition mayors, launched criminal investigations into multiple CHP officials, and tightened restrictions on public assembly. According to the Turkish Journalists Union, at least 16 journalists are in jail and several news outlets are facing threats of closure. Switching gears now to the political drama unfolding in India, in Jammu and Kashmir, after the Chief Minister Omar Abdullah dodged security barricades and jumped through a fence to reach the 13 July Martyrs graveyard in Srinagar. He was joined by the top leaders of his party, including the National Conference President Dr. Farooq Abdullah. And this comes after authorities in the Union Territory launched a clampdown, barring Omar Abdullah and other political leaders from visiting the martyrs' grave in a contentious decision. Omar Abdullah questioned the centre's rationale behind barring him and his colleagues from visiting Martyrs' Day, from visiting there. In fact, the site holds deep significance in Kashmir's history as it commemorates the sacrifice of 22 civilians killed in 1931 while protesting against the rule of Dogra ruler Maharaja Hari Singh. Soon after this, Abdullah and National Conference colleagues were detained and put under a JNK state police lockdown. Other key figures confined to their homes include Omar's father, Farooq Abdullah, former CM Mehbooba Mufti, and People's Conference chief, Sajjad Lone. The entire incident that has since spiraled has become a political flashpoint between the BJP and the National Conference, especially after the centre scrapped 13 July as a public holiday and imposed restrictions near the graveyard on the occasion in the aftermath of the abrogation of Article 370.
आज जिस तरह से उमर साहब ने हाई वोल्टेज ड्रामा शुरू किया है, पहले मैं बताऊं कि 2000 ये जो 19
Omar Abdullah wants to play an emotional card and come in the headlines again. With regard to July 13th, we call it a black day. It was a day when Kashmiri Pandits were looted, their shops were looted, and their houses were burnt, and still Kashmiri Pandits still remember this day as a loot day. We don't consider them martyrs. They were looters.
आज भी वो उसको ब्लैक डे के तौर पे मना रहे, और जो उस दिन मरे हैं वो लुटेरे थे, दंगाई थे, फसादी थे, वो शहीद नहीं है.
Moving on, India-Bangladesh ties have seen some turbulence in recent months, but in a gesture aimed at thawing those ties, Bangladesh's interim chief Mohammad Yunus has revived the long-standing tradition of mango diplomacy with India. Mohammad Yunus has sent 1,000 kgs of mangoes to Prime Minister Modi as a gesture of friendship between the two neighbouring countries. The mangoes that were sent through Akhora land port on Thursday were packed in 60 cartons. Officials handed over the consignment to the Bangladesh Assistant High Commission representatives in Agartala. The Yunus government, in fact, has also sent mango consignments to the chief ministers of states bordering Bangladesh. The Bangladesh government has been sending seasonal mangoes to India for several years now as a symbol of cultural ties and regional diplomacy. Mango diplomacy, which was started by former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, serves as a symbol of goodwill and exchange amid the recent tensions between the two sides. However, behind the mango diplomacy lies a far more complex situation, with the Yunus administration formally requesting the extradition of the former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who is living in exile in India. Not just that, since the Yunus's interim government came to power, anti-Hindu demonstrations have rocked Bangladesh, with reports suggesting that Hindu houses and temples, including ISKCON, were targeted. Nigeria's former President Muhammadu Buhari, who led Africa's most populous country from 2015 to 2023, has passed away at the age of 82 in London on Sunday. Buhari was the first Nigerian president to oust an incumbent through the ballot box. Buhari, who first led the country as a military ruler after a coup in the 1980s, earned a devoted following for his brand of anti-corruption conviction politics. He referred to himself as a converted Democrat and swapped his military uniform for kaftans and prayer caps. Much of his appeal lay in the anti-corruption ethos that was a central plank of his agenda, both as a military and civilian ruler.
There were a lot of hardship, and so the expectation people had in mind before his coming into office was dashed. The corruption that people thought he was going to fight with, it was not like that. In fact, people saw more corruption during his tenure than they thought would have happened in any other administration.
Buhari defeated Goodluck Jonathan in 2015 in what was judged to be Nigeria's fairest election to date. But Buhari quickly disappointed after his 2015 win. He took 6 months to name his cabinet. During that time, the oil-dependent economy was hobbled by low crude prices, prompting people to call him Baba Go Slow.
If he had died about 3 years ago, I think it would have been better. Dying now, I don't see anything good in it. If he had died about 3 years ago, maybe Osinbajo would have taken over it, and then it would have been a good choice for the country.
His second victory in 2019 came despite his first term being blighted by Nigeria's first recession in a generation, militant attacks on oil fields and repeated hospital stays. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks for watching.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at WION.com.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.